federal government did not shut down this segment, number one. That is my understanding, that the federal government didn't shut this down. And we will do an official statement once we get another official statement that we anticipate is going to be coming from Paramount. All right, so we will read what they say, and then we'll go from there. It is our understanding that Colbert, either Mr. Colbert or CBS, decided that they just didn't want to hear it. And this was because of a fear that the FCC may say something to them, and that there may have been advice to just have me on, and then they could clear the issue.
This was Democrat on Democrat violence. CBS was very clear that Colbert could run the interview that he wanted with that political candidate. They just said you may have to comply with equal time, which would have meant potentially giving airtime to Jasmine Crockett and another candidate. But instead of doing that, they claimed that they were victims. This was all about a political candidate trying to get attention and clicks. And the news media ran with it like lemmings. They just ate it up.
I want to move on to another story, which is just breaking overnight. It's a big old media clash. So we've got Stephen Colbert, very Democrat, very left-wing, quote-unquote comedic talk show host. You know, I think he used to be hilarious back in the 90s, but he's gone now. He's had a blow-up with his network over a planned interview with the someone running for Senate from Texas, James Talarico. He wasn't allowed to broadcast it, and here's how he broke the news to his audience.
You know who is not one of my guests tonight? That's Texas State Representative James Talarico. He was supposed to be here, but we were told in no uncertain terms by our network's lawyers, who called us directly, that we could not have him on the broadcast. Then I was told in some uncertain terms that not only could I not have him on, I could not mention me not having him on.
And he goes on to explain that the reason he couldn't have him on because CBS's lawyers were worried that interviewing James Talarico would go against the FCC's rule on giving fair, equitative coverage from all different candidates for an election race. So if they had James Talarico on, they would therefore have to have his opponent on. I'm guessing Stephen Colbert was never going to go for that, so the interview gets sunk. There's so many things I wanted to talk about with this one. What interesting for me is that it's not the FCC ruling, but it's CBS preempting a possible FCC intervention here. So whilst FCC gets to be the bad guy and Stephen Colbert gets to say FCC you and have that laugh, it's clearly just him against his network at this point.
Well, that's certainly how he is portraying it. CBS News came out with this statement suggesting that, they didn't tell Stephen Colbert that he couldn't run this interview, but that instead they provided legal guidance that they were worried that he needed to be able to, again, you cited that kind of equal time clause, because it is so close to the Democratic Texas Senate primary. And so they were concerned that they could, potentially violate that equal time clause if his show did not give equal time to his Democratic competitor, Jasmine Crockett, ahead of that primary. But I think what's really driving this is, there is new leadership. Everybody knows that CBS News, Barry Weiss was brought in to kind of clean up the network. It is, there's no love lost between Stephen Colbert and a lot of the kind of more liberal talking heads at the network and the new leadership. I think honestly, one thing that's probably driving this is Stephen Colbert doesn't have, the best viewers, and there's nothing like driving up controversy to get people to watch your show and to get, there to be Democrats who are crying foul over something.
Yeah, and I noticed when I checked the YouTube account, so he's not allowed to show the interview with James Talarico on air, but he can show it on his YouTube account. And when I did check the interview out this morning, all the comments were like, well, I was never going to watch this in a million years, but now that I'm not allowed to watch it, right, I can watch it. It's like that Barbra Streisand effect where she's like, you can't take photos of this house and put it online, and then everyone just wants to look at the photos of her house when no one wanted to look at it before. The thing for me, though, I want to get into the FCC side of this, because it is this, the rule does exist that you need to give fair play to different candidates, whether or not you agree with them or not. That seems odd to me. And I know under the Trump administration, the FCC are a bit more bolshy in saying, TV networks need to pull themselves into line and make sure they're not being partisan. But I really just don't like the idea of an FCC being that powerful. It's all fun and games when it's Trump going after Democrats and lefties and, we can all have fun. But, when the shoe's on the other foot, say AOC recovers from this and she becomes president, we'd all freak out if AOC run FCC was like, conservatives need to toe the line on making sure they're being nice to her. No one would stomach that.
You're absolutely right. I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert on FCC rules, but what I will say is, I think a lot of conservatives who are committed to free speech were alarmed by kind of the thinly veiled threat that the FCC commissioner issued kind of last year over the Jimmy Kimmel broadcast. Obviously conservatives don't like Jimmy Kimmel, but they want him to be able to present and speak, speak his mind on television. He said something controversial about Charlie Kirk, and the FCC was displeased with that. I think moving forward, this one seems kind of like a in-network spat between Stephen Colbert and new CBS leadership, like I said. But you're absolutely right. If the shoe were on the other foot, like with this Jimmy Kimmel thing we saw last year, and there were threats over kind of conservative broadcasters, I think a lot more conservatives who are okay, with the Jimmy Kimmel threats, it may not be okay if the shoe were on the other foot.
All right, brilliant. Audrey Folberg, we'll have you on next time AOC embarrasses herself, which should be about 30 minutes from now, so I don't get too far away from a laptop, but we'll talk to you again soon.